Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. Like I said, if we are getting any major new Nintendo Switch 2 news this year, it would happen during the investor meeting or during the Q&A the following day. And here we are. We have some major news regarding the Nintendo Switch 2, but it's not the news that I was expecting. I was expecting them to say, like, hey, we're going to announce it in January or February or even March, but we didn't get that. Instead, no, we got confirmation that the console is, in fact, backwards compatible, which is a weird route for Nintendo to take when we know nothing else about this system, but they have actually confirmed backwards compatibility. Let's talk about it. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the channel. Wanted to hop on here and do a quick little update for you all. This just got tweeted 8 minutes ago, but Nintendo Co. Ltd. on Twitter here, they said, "This is for Furukawa." We got another "This is for Furukawa" tweet. "This is for Furukawa. At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online will be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date." Now, real talk here, this isn't that surprising. We had heard their kind of intent of carrying forward Switch Online and Nintendo accounts on the successor system years ago, even back in, like, I think 2021. They talked about how they want to, have Nintendo account and have everything kind of carry forward. And we've heard rumors over the years that the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible. However, it is nice to at the very least know with 100% certainty that the Switch 2 will play Switch 1 games. That is something that, on the surface, yeah, that sounds so obvious, but we've seen a lot of times where that isn't obvious, right? We've seen a lot of times where the following system does not play the prior console, though recently for Nintendo, they've been good about that, right? The Wii can play GameCube games, the Wii U can play Wii games, so I guess it really was mostly that switch to the cartridge with the Switch that kind of stopped them from being able to do backwards compatibility. But either way, it is so nice to see actual news for this device. It is so nice to see backwards compatibility confirmed. It is so nice to see that Nintendo Switch Online will also be available on the Switch successor, because barring any weird, asterisks there, that implies that they will not be rebuilding the library again. We're what, 6-7 years into Switch Online, and they've never removed a game, I don't believe, from the classic catalog. Assuming they don't do that, we're going to start the Switch 2 with a massive library of classic retro games, and that is so exciting. So while it isn't the most surprising news to hear that backwards compatibility will be a thing on Switch 2, it is nice to just have it done. Like, we know, but there's no fear of this thing, where they're going to try to resell us all these games again. There's no real fear of that. I think there's a chance they might try to sell you a couple key Switch games, like Breath of the Wild, if they do like a 4K patch for that. But for the most part, you're not going to need to rebuy all of these games again to play them on your Switch, which is just really nice. And I think the way they announced this is peculiar, right? This is coming out of their kind of Q&A and investor meeting stuff, right? So the way they announced this just feels weird, given that we are thirsty for new information on, like, the release timing and reveal timing. And I say we, but I mean that applies to investors as well. I talked about the sales numbers for Nintendo this past quarter in a video earlier today, and the sales numbers are bad. Nintendo sales are down. Games are not selling anywhere near what they realistically should be given the install base. Nintendo stock went down quite a bit today. So it's not just the fans. Investors are really eager to see this next piece of hardware as well. So it's a little weird to come out and say, hey, all of our sales are down, but also the Switch 2 is backwards compatible. I guess you could look at that and say, well, maybe that's because they want people to buy with confidence this holiday season. They want people to buy Echoes of Wisdom and buy, Jamboree and Brothership with the confidence knowing that they will be able to play them on Switch 2. It's not going to be replaced in a couple of months. They'll always be able to play those games. Maybe that's why we're seeing this news come out right now, right before the holiday season really ramps up, so that they can hopefully get more people to buy these games. As I discussed this morning, sales are down. So maybe this is kind of a gambit for them to try and get you to buy these games and not hold off for the Switch 2 next year. But it does just feel weird to announce this without saying anything else. Like, where's the news saying, okay, we're announcing it in March? Just say you're announcing it in March. They say we're, announcing it at a later date. They say that they're going to announce it before March 31st, and that actually has remained unchanged. So they said that in May. Furukawa said, like, hey, we're going to announce this thing this fiscal year, so ending March 31st, 2025. They kind of just reaffirmed that earlier this morning. I didn't talk about it in this morning's video, but Furukawa basically said last night, like, hey, our plans haven't changed. We're still going to announce it this fiscal year. So it feels weird to be this close to it and not have a more concrete time frame, you know? But we do have some more information about Nintendo as a company right now, not specifically relating to Switch 2, because we got their kind of financial results and policy briefing for the fiscal year, and they kind of go through a lot here. I'm not going to read through everything. I'll have this link down below. It's super interesting stuff if you're, you know, invested in the business of Nintendo. But there's a couple of specific things I want to touch on. Annual playing users for current Switch, 127 million. That is huge. It's still growing. That's absolutely wild. They seem pretty proud of this 2025 lineup, and yeah, I mean, there's some great games in here: Dragon Quest 1 and 2, Suikoden, Metroid Prime 4, Trails in the Sky remake, Pokemon, Xenoblade, Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Get excited for that, guys, you know? So they're kind of, you know, showing off their 2025 lineup. There's a lot of talk in here about kind of the convergence of their home console and handheld business, and how this has basically allowed them to make way more games on the Switch than we would see in prior generations on one platform anyway. So they're kind of talking about here, like, well, Wii U and 3DS combined make Switch, you know? You add those two together and you get just way more games. They even made this nice little chart here showing all of the releases over the past couple of years, or past generation for Switch, all the first party major releases. And as you can see, I mean, yeah, especially in these later years, we've been getting a lot of games that are traditionally handheld franchises, right? I mean, this year alone, another Code, Mario versus Donkey Kong. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD was a 3DS game. Echoes of Wisdom even kind of feels like, you know, that's like the 2D Zelda team. Grezzo was doing a lot of work on 3DS, so Mario and Luigi Brothership, right? So we're getting a lot of stuff that would have been on 3DS or whatever handheld was out at the time, and now it's all being kind of converged. So it's cool to see them kind of addressing that here. They talk a lot about their strategies in terms of like expanding the Nintendo IP beyond just video games. They talk about how they like doing these free updates that everybody hates with Switch Sports and Metroid Dread, and especially the Mario Sports games. They talk about paid add-on content and how they want to do more of that because it encourages more people to continue playing games for longer periods of time, obviously. This I thought was a little surprising. So we have over 34 million members of Switch Online. In the image here, it shows the expansion pack, but that's just total Switch Online subscribers, so even based here included in that. That's actually a drop year over year. They don't say exactly how much, I don't believe, anywhere in here, but Switch Online actually has fewer subscribers now than it did last year. So they're starting to see, you know, people are actually, while, you know, the system is being used by more people every year, there's more annual active users. We are at a point where even subscribing to the subscription for some people is not looking that enticing. As expected, they announced Nintendo Music right before their investor meeting, so they can kind of talk about it in here and highlight that this is like a new way to drive Switch Online memberships. They have a new kind of third-party chart here. If you remember back in 2016, we saw one that had like, you know, Rockstar and From Software on it. We have a more of an updated one here with a lot of the current supporters of the Switch. You know, you have NIS on there, Idea Factory, Falcom is a big supporter of the Switch now. They never supported Nintendo in the past, but you still see, you know, From Software's on there, Capcom, Bandai Namco. They're still releasing Switch games. It's not the support that we want to see necessarily in terms of like Monster Hunter Wilds, but, you know, Capcom's still releasing all of their older games and collections that come out. Bandai Namco doing all the anime games, most of them anyway. So, interesting to see this current third-party lineup of third parties that are still supporting the Switch in a major way. A lot of those like smaller tier Japanese studios, I would say, like NIS, like Idea Factory, like Imagineer with the fitness boxing series. So it's a little different than what we saw back in 2016, where I believe it was, I see Take-Two's on here, so that would have been Rockstar, but I believe CD Projekt Red was on here in 2016. They're not here anymore, because obviously they're not bringing Cyberpunk to Switch. That'd be crazy. Yeah, they're just kind of flexing their current numbers for Mario on Switch. 3D Mario platformers have sold 42 million. Mario Kart, the standalone Mario Kart game, we have 64 million. 2D Mario, 41 million. And Mario Party, 34 million. Mario Party rising that much of this generation is absolutely crazy. I can't imagine what Switch 2 Mario Party is going to do if it launches pretty early in the life cycle, although I'm not sure if that'll happen because Jamboree just came out. Some other interesting series stats here: Animal Crossing, Smash, Zelda with 53 million units on Switch, Splatoon with 26 million, which is wild for a series that only has 2 games, you know. Pokemon has sold 99 million units on the Switch, so by the time we get another update, Pokemon will have sold over 100 million copies on Switch, which is just absolutely nutty. And then even looking at this chart, some of their like lesser selling series, it's nice to see Xenoblade Chronicles in a slide like this next to Pikmin, next to Kirby, next to Metroid. In fact, I mean, Xenoblade's actually ahead of Metroid in terms of sales, which is crazy on the Switch. Granted, there's been, 2 Metroid games versus technically only 2 Xenoblade games, but also Torna. I'm not sure if they would count that as an individual unit. I guess if it sold standalone or a la carte, maybe they would count that as its own game. But Xenoblade at 7.17 million units on the Switch is absolutely wild. And then, yeah, great numbers for Kirby and Pikmin as well. Metroid should hopefully get a big boost when Prime 4 releases next year. No more information on the Zelda movie here, but they kind of have a little visual here going over their current visual content pipeline, their movie pipeline. So obviously Mario movie 2023, Mario movie 2, or the sequel, whatever it's going to end up being called, is 2026. And then the Legend of Zelda just says 2020X. So who knows when we'll get that? I would expect 2027. If we're getting Mario in 2026, we'll probably get Zelda in 2027, maybe 2028, but I doubt it'll take that long to get a live-action Zelda movie done, to be honest. I'm honestly not sure if they've shared this information before, but there are 366 million Nintendo accounts out there. So not Nintendo Switch Online subscribers, but people that have made a Nintendo account. That is wild. But then we get to what I think most of us are most interested in, and that is the future outlook. So this is the image we've seen before, where they are kind of talking about how the Switch 2 or the Switch successor with this question mark here will be 20XX. I think this is a little updated here, this value-added service. I'm not sure if that was there before. They say here, until Nintendo Switch, there was no easy way to have consumers purchase and gameplay histories carry over across platform generations. As a result, our relationship with the consumers was interrupted when a new system was purchased. The introduction of Nintendo Account made it possible to tie consumers' history to their personal accounts, enabling Nintendo to maintain a continuous relationship with the consumers across platform generations. We have communicated that we plan on making an announcement regarding the successor to Nintendo Switch during this fiscal year. We believe that it is important for Nintendo's future to make use of Nintendo Account and carry over the good relationship that we have built with the over 100 million annual users on Nintendo Switch to its successor. Thus, we will make Nintendo Switch Online a service based on Nintendo accounts available on the Nintendo Switch successor. So, nice to have that 100% confirmed, you know. And this is kind of the big thing here. Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Furthermore, Nintendo Switch software will be playable on the successor. In addition to being able to play Nintendo Switch software they currently own, consumers will be able to choose their next purchase from a broad selection of titles released for the current Nintendo Switch. So, kind of just planning ahead, like, we're going to be leveraging our Switch 1 games as Switch 2 games. Like, we're going to be selling Mario Wonder for the next 2 decades, probably. Like, there will never be a point where the eShop on the Nintendo platform, whatever is out at that point, there will never be a point again where Mario Wonder's not available. So, I mean, these games are going to keep selling forever. Imagine Pokemon, right? Pokemon is something that always goes up in price because they stop printing copies, and eventually the demand overmeets how many copies were, out there for, like, the Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and DS games. Even the 3DS games are starting to get up there in price a little bit. With this, because the eShop will likely never close, because it will likely be the same eShop across every future Nintendo platform, Pokemon Sword and Shield will never stop selling. It'll start selling less, but there will always be people going back and buying a copy of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, for example. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch I explained today, will be announced at a later date. I do wonder if what does that mean? Like, obviously they're talking about backwards compatibility, but they're talking about how the successor to Nintendo Switch will communicate with the current Nintendo Switch. Is there something else going on here that we don't know about? Like, is there going to be some other sort of feature that we don't know in terms of how these two things kind of speak to each other and connect? I guess we'll have to wait and see. This is definitely like future news, but we've heard in the past that they're planning on starting this new building here, this corporate headquarters development center, building number 2, tentative name as they call it here. This is going to be a huge deal, expanding their in-house development teams for R&D, but also software development. In-house is already they're already powerhouses at EPD. Like, they're already releasing so many games. Most years, obviously this year was a little bit lighter because they focused a little bit more on those, Acquire doing Brothership and ND Cube or Nintendo Cube doing Mario Party, and Grezzo doing Echoes of Wisdom, and Mage is doing Famicom Defensive Club, assuming, while they're prepping Switch 2 software. But having more EPD teams, essentially, more in-house Nintendo teams is going to be crazy for the output on the Switch 2, probably about halfway through the generation. I mean, this is going to take years to set up. They talk here about strengthening their development of resources, of course, talking about all of their owned teams. So Nintendo Cube, 1UP Studio, Mario Club, Monolith, Retro, IQ for China there, NST, as well as Next Level, Shiver, Nintendo Pictures, Nintendo Systems, and SRD. So a lot of studios here. Obviously, Shiver being the most recent inclusion. We don't quite know what their role is going to be on Switch 2. Maybe they were bought to be a Switch 1 port studio. Maybe they wanted to get some final Switch 1 ports out, or maybe they're kind of future-proofing for Switch 2, and either way, they'll be a great port studio if that's what they end up doing, right? I mean, we could see Shiver make a new game, I guess, but given their history of porting Hogwarts Legacy and Mortal Kombat 1 to Switch, they'll probably be some sort of remake, remaster studio, I would imagine. And that is about all of the information we got. So while I was expecting or hoping for some sort of, information on when we can expect the console to actually be revealed, at the very least, I'm happy we got some sort of news. And while it was expected news, it is very nice to just hear and have confirmation that the Switch 2 will be able to play Switch 1 games. We've heard the rumors, we've heard all the reports, we all expected it, right? But it is just so relieving to know. And it is nice to hear some little nugget of information from Nintendo itself. It's not that crazy, right? But it is nice to just hear something. And it's nice to hear them reaffirm that they will announce it this fiscal year. They are not backing down on that. They have not delayed their plans. Even though the past couple of months have been very weird, a lot of us expected it to be announced in September and October because there was no direct. That must have just always been the plan, right? Like, they know what they're doing. They're going to figure it out. So if they want to announce it in January, they'll announce it in January. If the plan was always to announce it in March, they'll announce it in March. We'll have to wait and see. There was a rumor this morning from Brazil about how apparently there's going to be a Switch 1 focused February Direct. I think I'll talk about that maybe tomorrow or the next day because that is very interesting and I think maybe is a bit damning for when the Switch 2 might release. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Are you excited about the Switch 2 having backwards compatibility? Also, I thought it'd be fun to kind of look through this entire presentation, all these slides, because I love Nintendo nerdy numbers and all their data and stuff. So if you missed my video from this morning going over the sales numbers for specific software from the past quarter, definitely go check out that. But until next time, folks, peace.